Kill those fans. We are live. Hey, how about you, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Live call-in show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on a 3. Today is Sunday, June the 8th, 2025, the year of our Lord. Yeah. And we have a fantastic show for you tonight because we have a lot to talk about, a lot of calls to get to, a lot of questions to answer, a lot of comments to address. And here to do me? No. Hey, right month, wrong side. Here to do it with me, as they always are, Mr. Cole Pinkston and Sir Alan Head. How about you, boys?
How about you?
Hell yeah.
You got me started with the side comment there, baby.
Oh, anytime you can get Alan Head's face as red as the button.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Doing something right. Got a lot to talk about, man. The judge has made a call on the House settlement, the NCAA House settlement. A lot of things about to change come July the 1st. Auburn's got a big recruiting weekend. Had a big recruiting weekend this past weekend, this weekend. Going to have some more midweek and next week to finish it out this month of June. So baseball is over with now, turning full steam ahead to football. So we're going to get to as many questions and comments and calls as we can tonight. 701-779-9585. That's the number to call. That's the number to get through. Kevin from Wilmer already is on hold. If he can do it, you can too. Give us a call. Let's talk some football, recruiting, baseball, basketball, whatever it is that floats your boat. Before we get to the call lines, I wanted to remind everybody, if you're in or around Auburn, Opelika, Lee County, looking to make a move, looking to buy a house, looking to sell your house, maybe upgrade, maybe buy an investment property, which is a fantastic idea in the city of Auburn. Look no further for the help you need. Miss Jessica Andrews with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442. A lot of fours in that dadgum number, but she's a freaking 5-star realtor. I think she got 3 more 5-star reviews today. I think she's a consensus 5-star realtor, and I watched her this past weekend. Man, it's not as easy as you think, man. There's plays to be made when you're making offers, when you're finishing up the inspection report and what to do and how to handle it and what not to do. Man, she was fantastic. I watched her do it this weekend. Man, it was impressive. If you need somebody like that on your side, give her a call. Jessica Andrews with the Talents Group, 334-704-4442. Tell her we sent you. All right, fellas, I thought the absolute biggest news of the week, of the year, of our generation is probably the House settlement, and we have just the man on the job to talk to us about it. I'm glad you're here, Alan Head. I will say this. I read Ross Dellinger's story. I read Pete Nako's story. I think I have a general understanding of what it is, and I want to talk to you like I think some of the listeners are kind of like, okay, here's the big story, Alan. The revenue sharing goes into effect. Here's the bullet points as far as I'm concerned. Revenue sharing goes into effect July the 1st. I don't care about the backdating, the suits. The NCAA is going to have to backdate or pay $2-something billion. I think it's over the last 10 years. Anyways, it doesn't affect us moving forward. What does affect us moving forward as college football fans is revenue sharing. And I think some of the highlights that I took from it is the cap. The share each year will be $20.5 million. These are Power 4 schools. Is that correct, Alan?
That's correct. Well, I mean, it's going to be open to everybody, but Power 4 schools are the one that can afford that 20.5. I mean, I don't think there's any mid-major and or lower tier, what you would call group of 5 school that can probably handle that kind of a budget.
Let's see. Pete Nichols reported $20.5 million with athletes with football expected to receive 75%, which I even think John Cohen addressed this as well. 15.5-ish million will go to football. I think each school can divvy up how they see fit, right?
Correct.
So North Carolina might put $10 million on basketball, or UConn might put 15 on basketball. Is that how I was reading it?
100% how you're reading it. And I think that is why there's some concern with certain power conferences and how the Big East is going to handle it, because they don't have football to contend with, more or less. So they can allocate more of those resources that they have all to basketball. And then how would that tilt the recruiting landscape per se in that sport? And you saw how the SEC was very relevant in college basketball, which is why a lot of people believe that outside NIL is still going to be a factor, but just how can you work around some of the parameters of what's going to be set forward with revenue sharing?
The NIL. So everybody's got revenue sharing, 20.5 million, divvied up how you see fit. You can also still do NIL deals, but there's going to be an extra arm of the law. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be NIL Go.
Yes,
which will be run through Deloitte.
that's correct.
Okay.
Deloitte, which is more or less kind of an algorithm, which determines what the fairness of the deal is. And every deal that is in excess of $600 will be submitted to this. And then you will go through what they call summary judgment and or what's the word they use when you negotiate back and forth? It's mediation and arbitration is what you will go through at that point to determine the fairness of the deal. So it's a little bit convoluted. They're developing a new arm of the enforcement. It's going to be completely separate from the NCAA. This is really commissioned by the power conferences and the presidents of those universities to empower this person to do the job. They're looking at somebody right now who's involved in Major League Baseball. I'll dig the name out of my back of my memory here in just a minute. But he is somebody that's got a background with how they've kind of handled arbitration cases inside Major League Baseball. So it's going to be an exterior component to Charlie Baker and the NCAA. They're looking to do something significantly different and take a step forward in a way that they haven't been able to before. And just having that extra layer of somebody there that's got
College Sports Commission, Brian Seeley.
Brian Seeley, that's the name. But it has a background in enforcement and a way of doing it with major league ball players. So I think that was important to them because of the money being what it is. And we're now seeing a more professional side of college sports. Having somebody with that background to understand the relationship, I think was important. And I think it's also important for the NCAA to create some separation for themselves and have a new entity kind of in charge of overseeing these deals.
So you're looking at having a base pay for everyone out of that 20.5 rev share. And it's going to increase, with the years. I think I saw 33 million at some point, maybe in 10 years from now. So it's not going to be 20.5 for the foreseeable future. I think it's going to increase just as anybody else is going to get a pay raise. But that's your standard. That's your base, right? And now,
Correct.
Like you've got 15.5. Let's just use that number now to use. And I think another thing is important is the 105 roster.
Very important. Now, it's going to be tailored some because the big point of contention and what Claudia Wilkin pushed back on, which, by the way, I would have never thought that 75-year-old Claudia Wilkin would have been the most important person in college sports for the better part of a year, but she certainly was. She had some heartburn, I would say, about people that are presently on rosters right now and then being cut from either their scholarship or their roster spot. And so they're going to grandfather that in. So when they graduate from college and move on, you'll be able to drop that roster spot to get a little bit closer to whatever the roster limit is within your given sport. So they are not going to force kids off rosters anymore. But at some point, you have to be willing to admit that this is a business now. And can you afford to continue, even with walk-ons, right? You're giving them free food. You're giving them clothing. You're giving them a lot of opportunity. What's it? Alston money, things like, or Alford money. No, it's Alston. Excuse me, Alston money. There are all kinds of things that are put into place for them that are coming out of a college budget. So just because they're not necessarily a scholarship player doesn't mean that there's not money being poured into them. So I do think colleges are still going to be a little bit prudent and try to make sure that while they're not necessarily removing roster spots for these people that are deserving and that are on the roster presently, I think they're going to be mindful about how they go about things moving forward. Being fiscally responsible. It's a new age when you're taking $20 million out of an athletic budget that didn't have to sacrifice that. While it may not seem like obviously college sports is a big business, but $20.5 million out of anybody's budget, that's a big haircut.
And that's why I think cuts are going to have to be made at some point somewhere, personnel, shrinking departments. But as far as the NIL, and let's say in Auburn's situation, on to Victory, the NIL arm, the collective of Auburn. So the base pay there is going to come out of the 20 or the 15.5 for football, and then what's left to be paid to get these kids is going to come from NIL. And like you said, anything over $600, which most of them will have to go through the NIL Go and the analytics, the formula to determine whether that's legit or not.
Yeah.
Do you see that? do you see the salaries of these kids that are making what they're making right now? Do you see them? Do you think this will affect them personally negatively? Do you think that will bring some of this inflated salaries of some of these kids that we haven't confirmed millions of dollars to this quarterback, but do you still see that happening?
I think that's the hope, is that it is going to affect that and put some version of regulation. Now, do I believe that's going to actually happen?
Right.
I don't know. And it's why it's two-pronged. And you're going to see here very soon, I think, a bill get issued or initiated within the Senate. This is something that Greg Sankey and the other commissioners of the Power Four sports have kind of been angling for a while now, but watch for Ted Cruz to be the one that's going to kind of make a move forward. I think he's worked on some bipartisan legislation. Cory Booker is probably a name that you should pay attention to, but without some version of congressional assistance and codifying the House settlement and providing a small layer of antitrust exemption to the NCAA to be able to formulate their own rules, we're going to be right back to where everything started, because a lawsuit is going to occur the second that a kid is infringed upon and they're saying, hey, the NCAA is blocking my ability to earn. This is a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. And they will they'll hire an attorney who will forum shop a little bit, and they'll find a favorable judge that will potentially be more inclined to grant their motion. I think typically it's a TRO or a temporary restraining order, a TRO, and or an injunction of some sorts, a preliminary injunction that would grant them the ability to continue to earn on the deal that they've been offered until a final judgment can be determined within the case. But I'm getting probably the cart in front of the horse here a little bit, but my anticipation is that you're going to have to see some movement within the Senate, because outside of moving to a fully professional model where you have complete employment, and I think the NCAA has pushed so hard against that because of what it potentially could do to the Olympic sports. Because once you start an employment model, it really is a business at that point.
Ooh.
And the sports that don't make money or turn what we would call a net revenue, they're going to be first on the cut line, right? And no one wants to see that. I think probably the biggest thing that scares athletic directors, and then if you're even thinking about from an Olympic standpoint, think about how many athletes train, how many swimmers, track and field. These people are all prepared within college to compete in the Olympics, and how that's going to affect not just Olympic sports within college, but Olympics period, as far as how these athletes are prepared or trained. Whereas in other countries, you have like a minister of the sport or a minister of your Olympic sports or things of that nature where you have government funding there. All that's pushed down to the college level. And I think that is why you see so much pushback. No one wants to see a sport be cut. No one wants to see people's opportunities taken away. And so you're going to see them try their best to push against that. But if it ever moves to an employment model, the two net revenue sports at most every school are men's football, or football and men's basketball. And then there are other sports that will turn a minor profit, baseball, softball at some schools. But there's just not a lot. Most of them run in the negative, and they feed off of the revenue that football and men's basketball generate. It's very different now. I think there are people that are very mindful about the direction of college sports with which it's headed, and it's why they have angled so hard for congressional assistance. Now, I don't really trust Congress to get something passed. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's trying to thread a needle through a very small hole, but that's what they're hoping for. And at a minimum, I think what they believe is that with this new salary cap and how salaries will have to be approached and the clearinghouse situation that you're going to have to go through with NIL Go, at a minimum, you're going to slow people down for about a year and a half before the dam breaks again. In case, say they don't get, the House case codified and they don't get that antitrust exemption that they need to kind of be able to generate their own rules. They're going to have about a year and a half of people trying to get this into the court system and get it all the way through where the dam would break. And how much can you accomplish in a year and a half? And can you set a new norm where the expectation isn't what it is right now.
Oh, what are your takes, man? What are you curious to see or know about this? How when I was reading this, the first thing that I was really disappointed in, and I don't know how this works, and I don't know how it would affect, but I was really hoping to see the you were talking about the full employment model. And this is personally and selfishly of me.
Sure.
Like I want to see, I want the open trend. I want the contracts. I want to see what, as a recruiting guy, why this guy may have chose this school and if it had anything to do with this.
Yes, I've looked at it from a recruiting standpoint, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to coaches and sources of that nature, I don't know if they want change, but I don't know if this is exactly what they wanted, if that makes sense. That's what I've gotten, because right now you're at a place like Auburn that has money, and it's unlimited right now, really. Now you're putting a limit on it. So, a limit. Now, I think what it does is it goes back to the original idea of NIL, where, look, it doesn't matter what school you choose. Your name is what this is all about. If you have the name, if your name's Arch Manning, you're going to make millions, right? That's what it goes back to now, more so. And that's what the pitch is going to be more, because, I heard it. I put it on the board. If you're part of the corner, I put this up the other day where I've talked to a few people and learned the approach of some of these schools when they are doing official visits. They haven't been able to talk deals like they usually are. I think this weekend with Auburn, you saw a little more movement with guys. Claude Puma, J.C. Anderson, a few of the guys we thought Auburn made moves with, maybe even Ian Nacho, Nolan Wilson, maybe even Ian Nacho to an extent, where they were actually able to sit down and go, this is what we can do now. We know. We're not going to BS a number with you. We're not going to give you a crazy, pipe dream number that we could never match. This is where we're at. Take it or leave it. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? Whereas beforehand, they were operating under the guise that this was going to be how it was going to be, but they couldn't really give a straight number.
Sure.
Now they can. And that's the biggest change since the settlement passed. Coaches are happy that happened, but they're also going, well, man, I didn't really want a limit. I mean, we kind of like the way we had it going.
Well, if you think about a situation at Auburn right now, right? If you really wanted to and you needed a kid in your class and you're not getting that discount because the play on the field has not been what you would like it to be, or you don't have the history built of putting guys in the NFL, you can pay a little bit more and land that kid, right?
Sure.
And now you have to be a little bit more fiscally responsible. If you're truly working off a budget of $15.5 million, if that is truly the number that you're working with.
So do you think they're working in terms of percentage points? Are you saying 100% of our budget this year is 15.5? All right, 5-star. We're looking at 1.2% for you.
I think I think you have to take that kind of a viewpoint, and you're probably, if I've got my GM hat on, I'm looking at it very similar to an NFL model. I'm looking at, across the country, what are they paying quarterbacks? What are they paying wide receivers? What are you paying, premium rush ins, the premium left tackle, the premium positions in the NFL that get paid that change the fortune of what it is, that change your ceiling, right? Not your floor pieces. Floor pieces are typically like safeties and, mid-skill talent like tight ends and linebackers. But those high-end premium positions, what are they paying across the average? And then what do we need within this recruiting class? But you're right. They're definitely allocating percentages to my roster of how much does my quarterback room, how much can the quarterback room cost, period?
Right.
How much can my linebacker room cost? Because it's not just per recruiting class, but you're looking at an overall budget for your roster of this is what I can pay out from a rev share standpoint.
And then look, okay, so we're going to get you 2.3%, and then the rest of it's going to come from NIL.
Right. And I think that's a very pivotal part where OTV will still play a piece. Because
for sure.
While I think that eventually OTV will move almost exclusively in-house at Auburn, I think it will be absolved, right? Their role now, as opposed to a facilitator and a negotiator, is going to be as a marketing agency. I think that is where they separate themselves, and you start to look for deals for these people, whether it is the local car dealership or whether it is a national campaign, because you have a Cam Newton type figure on your roster and you can create all kinds of generational wealth for that player through a legitimate endorsement deal.
Well, you don't want them to be in-house, right? Because right now they're a separate entity, separate LLC from Auburn University, meaning they're not under the cap, basically, right?
Correct. But now with you having a cap, I don't know, because this is what I'm trying to figure out is how much of OTV will, like them paying a player directly, will be challenged. And then how much of their role will now be seeking a deal and just being the mediation piece in between the person that is going to pay that deal and the player themselves.
So the cap only pertains to the rev share of it. So the athletic department is taking 20.5, and then OTV, whether it's wherever its umbrella falls.
Yes,
as of right now, they're unlimited.
That's correct.
This is what John Cohen said when he put it out this weekend on Saturday. He said the settlement will eliminate scholarship caps, enable athletic departments to share revenue directly with student athletes.
Yes.
While leveling the playing field through the implementation of annual caps on the funds that are directly distributed. That's a lot of words to me, but I think I understand what he's saying.
The rev share.
Yes. So the rev share comes directly from the school, and it comes in a combination of different ways, but it is $20.5 million directly from the athletic revenue that is generated at Auburn University.
Is that about 20%? Did I see that somewhere, that number, like of the athletic or the revenue, the yearly revenue for the athletic department? Oh gosh, where did I see that? It was, so if Auburn, like you said, $20.5 million out of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, what is that 20%? I think I saw that there was about, or maybe it was, you know what I'm talking about? So if they bring in $100 million each year, that's their budget.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going to have to give 20.5 of it. They're going to have to share it with the athletes.
So it's really non-contingent on what you produce per year. They took a national average of how much revenue is generated across, college sports, and they made an assessment that 20.5 million was fair.
Okay.
And realistically, that number was pushed by Power 4 commissioners and those that have power with the major media outlets, right? And then they made a determination on how do you get to that? Like, what is revenue that is generated by the university? Now, the interesting piece is that donations by alumni was not considered revenue. Ticket sales, media, your media deal. What was another aspect that was, concessions, licensing, all of those things were considered revenue. And that is where I think to get over the hump with taking this 20.5 million out of your budget, where you haven't been able to, you haven't had to do this, you're going to have to lean on your alumni now to be able to donate to the university, not to OTV the way they have, because you have to make up that 20.5 million that you used to operate off of, so that all your other sports don't necessarily have to sacrifice. And that is why I think OTV will also play a bigger deal with trying to find and make more NIL deals, legitimate NIL deals,
right,
where players are going out and actually earning their name, image, and likeness to compensate them and to create more revenue for them. So they're not necessarily compromising their overall value. It's going to come from two pots now, right? You're going to have the rev share pot, and then you're going to have the NIL pot.
So
go ahead,
big
Cole.
picture question to me, because you'll lose me if we get talking real, with big words.
Sure.
The average fan pops in, wants to check on recruiting at Auburn.
Right.
What changes for them? If they don't know anything about the behind the scenes, they don't care about the number, they don't care about the number Auburn's spending, they don't care about all that. What changes for them? Is Auburn going to benefit from this? Is this going to be a problem for Auburn? I think that's what the fan wants to know. That's what I want to know.
And I would tell you, I think a lot of people are still trying to figure that out. Cole, I thought your point of who you talk to on background this weekend, and kind of them saying like, hey, we really don't know the rules. I would tell you that confusion has been ongoing for the better part of 2 or 3 months when I've spoken to people on background and what I would consider in the know as it pertains to NIL. There's a lot of ambiguity. And I think the hope is that now that the House settlement is passed, you're going to start to see the NCAA be more communicative of these are the guidelines that we're putting out there. But I think it's probably going to be about another month. It's going to be a slow trickle of that information getting out, and everybody will know their place a little bit more. Do I think it helps Auburn? Not presently. I think right now it impedes Auburn more than it helps Auburn. That said, have a little success on the field this season, and I think Auburn may have hit it at the right time, because now you're getting the benefit of the doubt as opposed to you need to pay more. Like I would call it, I think I've heard it referred to as the suck tax.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like to use a derogatory term, but if you're not going to be very good on the field, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more in NIL. And if everybody is on the same, you know what I mean? Like, you know, your budget's the same. I think that hurts Auburn slightly right now.
But it's that was the question I wanted to know, Cole, and I think that's the question that everybody in our community wants to know. And I'm like you, Alan. I don't think it changes much as far as recruiting goes as to where this kid's going. Does it give Oregon a leg up, or is Florida? The money is still going to be offered to the kid, the same as it always has been.
Yes.
The only thing that's going to be different is where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a portion of it now is going to be coming straight from the university, which again, recruiting fans, that doesn't matter because it's going to the recruit. So the recruit's looking at, his receipt, and it's saying, instead of all NIL OTV, that's what they're going to give me. Now it's got two different sources of income.
Yes.
Let me say this weekend, Jeffrey, we're up there going through official visit stuff like usual. When they wrap up, I got a good feeling about it because it is technically it's not in effect yet, but coaches know.
Yes.
Now. So they implemented that with this official visit group, and it was the most positive official visit group we've seen yet.
Very fair, very true.
So I got maybe a sense of calm about it where I go, I think Auburn's going to be okay from this. I think they'll be fine. I don't think the average fan will notice a change.
No, I don't either.
No, probably not. Probably not. I think where it gets interesting, and this isn't necessarily Auburn, this is more the NCAA, is now that House has been passed or has been deemed that it's, a fair settlement and they've signed off on everything, and we'll start the revenue sharing piece. Watch for, I think the transfer portal is the next thing to kind of have a ruling come in on that.
Come on.
And how they're going to probably manage one portal window.
Please.
I think that will be the next thing that will happen. And if my information is right, I've been sitting on this nugget for a little bit, but I think it's probably going to be a March, April window. If I had to guess, I know it's been floated of January. I think they'll end up settling on March, April. And largely that's because the revenue share deal, it's going to run from July 1 to like June 30. So in March, April timeframe lines up better with the construction of the overall deal.
That's about right.
By comparison to like a January window, right?
I think that's right, because that's in between playoffs, signing day, and then right before spring. It should be wrapping up right as you're starting spring.
Now get rid of spring.
And I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see them move to an OTA type model.
Freeze will love that.
And they're going to kind of do away with spring. Or if they keep spring, it'll be a modified version of what you do where it's only like maybe 5 practices, and then you hold the majority of those for those summer months. So those will be the two things that, to me, if you're an Auburn fan, that I think improve the experience more than anything. Basketball has shown you the stability that it has for at least being able to manage a roster for a full year. Football right now, they do this every 6 months. You are building a roster every 6 months, and you're fighting to retain kids. If you only have to go through that escapade once a year, I think it improves the game for people. And I believe you're able to retain more of the players on your roster. And you get back to more of what made college football or college sports in general great, because now you get more human interest stories. These kids change rosters so much now, you don't get to know who the players are. And a lot of fans don't care, right? They just care about wins and how my team is doing.
Right.
But I do think that you're going to create more retention by only having one portal window and kind of taking some of the chaos out of this. I think that is the biggest thing, more than NIL. NIL to me is not as big of a deal as the transfer portal and the unlimited eligibility to transfer as many times as you want. That has created more chaos in college football than anything.
That was one of the things that I was probably my expectations were a little high, but when I was saying that the full employment, so I could see the contract, I also want them be held accountable for it. I want a 3-year deal in, and if you're transferring out, then there's a buyout to pay, and like that's what I want it to ultimately be.
And I'm with you. And that's the capital J journalism coming out in you, Jeffrey. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know, it's a piece
I need
of the
something
story.
hard.
Yes, it's a piece of the story now. In NFL and MLB and NBA, the contract is part of the story, and it's made transparent to everybody involved. Not knowing that, you know, there are things that you know on background that you will never be able to say, that will never see the light of day, that would be so eye-opening for the audience to be able to hear. And for anybody in the comments right now saying, just say it. No, you can't. You would, if you burn sources like that, dude, good luck doing what Jeffrey and Cole do for a living, okay?
You blew it.
And still, it's not black and white. That's what I was, as a journalist, you're hoping to get. Like, I want to see what, you know, what 5-star wide receiver has signed with Auburn for this 3-year deal. Okay. And he's leaving. Okay. Well, you know, Florida's got this over here for him. He's leaving Auburn to go to Florida. I want to see that black and white. I want the hard facts and not what we hear behind, in you know, behind the dumpster.
With no parameters, you can't, because he officially visits Auburn. You give him a black and white deal. He goes to Florida the next day. They go, hey, what's Auburn offering you? Okay, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, they could just always one up it.
No, I'm talking about once they get in. Like the transfer is what I hate. I hate the year-to-year transfers. It's like Alan said, man. You don't know these, dude. For the majority of my career doing this, I could tell you what this kid's name was, where he went to high school, what class he was, who he chose Auburn over, and I could probably tell you one or both of his parents' names. And I've got him, you know. Now I do. Y'all talk about some guy, and I'm like, is he still on the team? Where does, you know? I don't know where'd he come from.
Yeah,
sure.
So
that's the only model I know. You know,
the unlimited transfers, it eats me up.
Yeah,
I get it. If 24/7 offers me 10 times the money and I can get out of my contract, I'm gone. And then the next year, if On3 wants me back and they're going to pay me more money, I'm gone. I get it.
But within that contract, you have a buyout.
That's right.
And I think that is something that you will see. Now, the interesting piece is I did have a conversation. And I think this has actually been reported. So I think either Pete Nakos or it was Ross. And Ross has kind of made this his beat, right? Like
Ross Dellinger has been fantastic.
Right. If you don't follow Ross Dellinger and you're interested in how the house settlement is going to be, you know, kind of utilized within college sports, or just if you're needing to know more of the nuts and bolts of the story, please read Ross's work. Read Pete's work. He does great stuff too.
Both of those guys, really good.
But there has been talk about potentially there being buyouts with regard to revenue share deals.
Oh.
And if that takes place, can the buyout be taken against like the other team's rev share budget, right? Like if you're going to go buy this player out to transfer to your school, well, now does that eat away at your overall budget for your rev share for the following season? So you have to account for that. And then that is a hope that would keep retention down some too, to keep teams from, like, if you're really going to tamper and you really want my player, okay, be ready to pay the freight.
Right. That's always been the argument for transfers is, well, coaches can do it. Yes, coaches can do it. They're signed to contracts. And if they break that contract and leave early, there are consequences.
Yes. And
that's
typically
a new consequence since they took away, if you transfer, you sit out a year, you know.
And it's too easy to transfer every year.
And I don't think you'll ever get back to a penalty transfer system. I just don't. I think the
Not
court,
sitting out a year.
yeah, I think the court has decided that is not necessary. It's an infringement on player rights and it's a violation of antitrust because you're prohibiting somebody from earning. But buyouts are a whole other gamut, right? And it's embedded with any contract. Now, the issue is NIL contracts are still a very relatively new process. And what judge is going to be the one that's going to enforce the buyout? That's where the school, the NCAA, conferences, everybody, because this is going to all end up in a courtroom, right?
Oh, yeah. So many things.
This is all going to end up in a courtroom again, unless, again, the NCAA gets some version of antitrust and then they can start to make rules. Now,
which is what the NFL has with free agency.
Yeah, but they do it through collective bargaining, right?
Right.
So because it's collectively bargained and you have a union of players that agree to this set of rules.
Okay, there you
go. Along with the owners.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, the NCAA is trying to circumnavigate this a little bit by going through Congress to ask for limited antitrust to be able to make some rules without getting sued every 5 minutes. And because of the way the court sees this right now, it is a lose-lose for the NCAA anytime they go to court. I don't think they've won a case yet, except for on eligibility. And they have been somewhat successful there with some of these D2 guys that have tried to sue for extra eligibility. They lost the Pavia case where they got an injunction. I don't think there's been a final determination there yet. And I have to give Pavia's attorney a lot of credit on that one.
Yes.
They were able to, I mean, dude, I will be honest with you. When I read through the brief a little bit, it read like something like me and you were in a college dorm one night and we threw everything against the wall to see if it would stick. But the biggest argument that they had is the NJCAA is a separate entity from the NCAA. And so why should my eligibility be impacted if I played for a different organization?
Because you weren't good enough. I mean, really, right?
You're right. But the problem is that the NCAA hasn't been accounting for prep schools in the same way. Like Hargrave didn't count against your eligibility.
Yeah.
Had they done that, they would have had a leg of precedent to stand on, but they hadn't.
So the only thing left for me, and this is something that I heard floated out a couple of weeks ago. I think it's been talked about, mentioned about, but the 5 for 5. So eliminating the red shirt and just going strict 5 for 5. And I believe that 5 starts after high school, whether you go to JUCO. Is that right, Alan? Have you heard the 5 for 5 proposal would be eliminating red shirts, eliminating the 4-game max?
Yes, I have heard talk of the 5 for 5. They've slow played it a little bit because they wanted to get house settled. I think that is something that you will see. I don't know how quickly they're going to move on that. And I say that because you had a ton of athletes, particularly basketball players, that jumped into the portal whose eligibility had completely expired. I think the Tennessee point guard actually has a lawsuit against the NCAA right now saying that the NCAA infringed upon his rights and he should have an additional year, that they're limiting his earning potential. I think they may try to hold out a year before they pass that.
Mm-hmm.
So as not to create precedent and mass movement here at the very end, since rosters are already settled for a lot of players.
Whew. Well, I think that was a very good crash course for everyone, including myself.
Yeah.
If y'all have any more questions for Alan, he is the man to ask. And but let's get to the phone lines now. Let's see if old Kevin wants to talk house settlement. I don't think so. We're about to turn the page.
Cam Coleman, 18 touchdowns, baby.
Get to it, Zach.
Kevin, you're live, man.
From Wilmer, Alabama.
How about you, Kevin from Wilmer, Alabama?
How you doing, Jeffrey Lee?
Man, I'm doing fantastic.
Alan Ed.
I'm doing great, Kevin. It's great to hear from you, buddy.
And we put my mom back in the hospital.
My goodness.
I'm sorry to hear that, Kevin.
I think Cam Coleman might have 28 touchdowns this year.
You think so?
Yeah.
What's that about?
It's his year.
It's about 2 per game. I mean, that's not crazy.
No.
averaging 2 a game. That's
And Thompson.
Perry Thompson.
got to get Perry involved, don't we, Kevin?
Kane.
13 for Perry Thompson. How about Eric Singleton? Malcolm Simmons.
14 for Eric Singletary.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But you got Cam having a breakout year.
Will throw over 300 yards.
You think so?
Yeah.
Per game, average per game.
Yeah, per game.
I hear you.
I like it.
I believe Auburn fans will be absolutely thrilled with those numbers.
Our baseball team.
What'd you say, Kevin? I'm sorry, I was talking over you.
I was proud of the Auburn baseball team. They should have won Friday night and Saturday.
I mean, if they're playing, they should win. Ain't that right, buddy? Struggled, though, man. Friday night, I felt they should have let that one slip away, and then Saturday, they just couldn't get anything going offensively.
No. And what we talked about on this
next year.
Yeah. They got a couple of good commitments. If you ain't far following the baseball.
You sound like me trying to say mature.
Go check out Auburn Live on 3, man. Justin Hokinson's been having some great baseball commitments.
Yes.
Landon Duckworth came in cold last week. What you think?
Yeah, I'm not feeling that one, Kev. Just not.
I agree, Cole. Big time, I agree.
Commit to Auburn.
What do you say about commit?
It ain't over till December. That's what Emmanuel Iheanacho told us today, right, Jeffrey?
That's right.
That's
ain't
right.
over till I thought me and JG did these. We thought he said it ain't over till the sun sets. I went back and I said, Manny, what'd you say? He goes, it ain't over till December. And I said, what?
I can only imagine you and Jay looking at each other.
Last week.
What'd you say, buddy?
Who was visiting on the plains last weekend?
Well, this weekend was kind of a big deal. You had 5-star Manuel and Iheanacho. You had big dog wide receivers, Jace Matthews, Marquez Daniel. You had big dog tight ends, Xavier Tiller, J.C. Anderson. You had who else? Oh, big dog Claude Puma.
Puma, yeah.
You had defensive lineman Nolan Wilson. So there was 8 studs on campus this weekend. And then this week, Kevin, is going to be even bigger. They're going to have 4 or 5 midweek visitors. It's going to be big, including 5-star tight end Caden Prothrow. And then this next weekend, June the 13th.
We need him.
Yeah.
Prothrow.
June the 13th through the 15th is going to be another star-studded list. I think that's going to be Auburn's last. No, they got the December the 20th. January the 20th. What the hell month is this?
I don't think they're doing visits on the 20th.
I don't think we have any scheduled.
I think Freeze is taking that week off again.
Is that the last one before?
Well, there's a June 27th, too.
Yeah, the last, as of right now, June 13th.
And it looks like you guys have one, unless you didn't do it, June 16th with Jalen Winters. And I don't know if you guys put that on or somebody else.
I've never heard of the guy. Did you?
He told me in a message that he was taking one, but I don't think that's going to happen.
But yeah, I think you're right, Alan.
Eric Winters will play some this season.
Special teams, maybe?
I think there's nothing but air and opportunity for him to play at safety.
Okay.
I think the possibility is there. The issue with Eric is he a field safety? Is he boundary? If he's boundary, I think he's behind your freshman All-American from last season.
Yeah. He might spell him. What do you think?
I think that's where he's going to be, and I think Eric has a chance to get into the 2 deep. I really do.
So New Boy would be on the other side?
Yeah.
Or at star. I think he played a lot of star in the spring.
Football season, y'all.
Okay. Appreciate you calling in, big dog. War Eagle, buddy. All right, Zach, keep us going. Good stuff, Kevin. Appreciate you calling in.
8491. You're live. Who are we talking to? Where are you calling from?
Ricky from Birmingham.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky.
Yes, dude. Yes.
Hey,
All right, Zach, keep us going. Just
I have 3 questions for y'all. The
Hey,
first
Ricky,
question,
can you turn down their TV in the background? I can't stand hearing myself talk.
you hear me?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My first question is gonna be an update. I asked the question like a couple of weeks ago. Cole went here, and I think Adam said he's gonna do some research on it. It's the Alabama High School Athletic Association. They created a task force to crack down on players transferring from other schools.
Ricky, I will be honest with you. I asked a couple of people and I wasn't able to get really a straight answer for you. I have not forgotten. I promise you I'm either going to answer it on the show or I'm going to put a post on the board for you. And look, feel free to call back in. But what I don't want to do is give you kind of a, excuse my language, but half-ass answer, my man. Like I don't want to BS my way through it. I would like to give you something factual there as far as my opinion on what I've been able to kind of collect for information.
I've talked to a bunch of coaches, Alan, and that's a big contention right now for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tough, man. You're going to have a hard time regulating that in high school. I mean, it's totally different than college, and you know how hard that's been to get a handle of. So I don't expect that to stop. Listen, that's been going on for a while, Ricky. It's
Just
a
so
little
many
more
loopholes.
prominent. Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Because most of these transfers are legit transfers because you have to sit out a year unless, it's a bona fide move for a family. Well, when one school pays for your family to move into their community, you're actually, that's a bona fide move. It's not like you're using somebody else's address and going to that school. There's just so many legitimate, illegitimate ways to find these loopholes in the high school. I would love to see it. That burns me up, I think, more than the transfer portal in college. I hate that. But what are you going to do about it? And even if they did have this task force, and I think that, like you said, that they're trying to crack down on it, but like I don't know how you do that.
I mean, you've had several coaches get fired in the AHSAA for this reason, and I guess that's how they plan to go about it. It's just when they catch them, you're done.
But I mean, what are they doing illegally?
See, that's
they're
the part
probably
to prove, right?
Right.
They have to prove, that they're bringing in the family, finding a place for them to live, all that kind of stuff. Which
Sure.
we know that
Is that illegal?
It would be what you called
depends on where the funds come
Yeah.
from.
Sure.
I've seen it done illegally, and I've seen it done legally. Put it that way.
I don't know, man. I'd go to court and say, listen, if this guy's paying me to move my family over there, regardless of the reason,
that's where it gets hard.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying. How can they stop it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess what they would do is they would just make the kid ineligible, right? And then by the time you get a court to take action on it, has half the season already gone by.
Yeah.
So you're using it as a scare tactic more than it's actually going to hold up.
And they've
in my honest opinion.
They've done that before, but I don't know. There's no consistency with that. It's hard for them to find consistency with it.
Right. And again, I wanted to ask a few people, Ricky, to give me like a specific answer on where do they think this is actually going to be enforceable. Not just yes, they're creating it, and yes, they're looking into it, and yes, I think they're working with dragonfly.com or something of that nature. Like there's some things that I can tell you about it, but I haven't been able to get specific responses that I think merit the answer that you're looking for, or I can give you an educated opinion of where they might be successful with this and where it might hold water.
Okay. My next question goes to Jeffrey. Which player is the future face of the college program? Zion Ely, Anthony St. Jones, or Bryce Perry Wright? Don't you got to pick one player?
Oh, of those three, it's not Bryce Perry Wright. So
Yes.
I'm down to Zion Ely and Tank Jones. I could flip a coin. Hold on. Zion Ely. I mean, I really do think both of those guys are they're game changers. I think Auburn views them the same way. I think a lot of schools view those guys the same way. A lot of evaluators, and they're very, very good at what they do in a, what do you call it, Alan? A very premium position. There you go.
Yes.
I take Tank 10 times out of 10 in that.
Do you take Tank because of the Auburn factor, or do you take Tank because you think he's ultimately the better player and has some?
Yeah, Auburn factor.
Okay.
Mostly. I'd putting them head to head. It's pretty much a draw, in my opinion. I actually like Tank's film better, personally.
I think he's got more portability. He's more physical against the run. Zion, in my opinion, bends a little bit better around the edge.
Probably got the higher ceiling, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think as a pure pass rusher, yes. But as a two-way player, no. I think Tank's got the higher ceiling. So they're just different, right? Very different.
If I said one of them's going to be an All-American and the other one's going to be an All-Conference player, first team on both, like one is going to be a first-team All-American, one's going to be a first-team All-SEC or All-ACC or whatever. Which one would you think more likely to be the All-American?
Zion Ely.
Ely, because the rankings people have staked their claim in him as the number one guy. So they better be right. Or they never hear the end of it.
Good stuff, Ricky. Appreciate you calling in. Ricky!
Yeah, I got one more question.
Okay, get in there.
Zach, pick one player from FCS.
Ooh.
Who you wish would be on? Who you wish was on the Auburn roster, and why you pick that person?
Fantastic question.
Zach, you got to come to the front for that one, big dog. We got to see your face when you respond.
An FCS player, Zach, you can pick anyone to join the Auburn Tigers in 2025.
God. I'm trying to go back and see who's all coming back because they're already all FBS.
Oh, shit. That's right. Well, if they're any count, they're already in the SEC.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? You want to go pre-portal and I wish Auburn would have gotten that guy?
No, I'll keep it fair. I would say either Andrew Zock from Mercer or
position
edge rusher.
Okay.
He was a freshman All-American last year at Mercer, had like 14, 15 tackles for loss, almost double-digit sacks, probably going to be one of the best edge rushers in the FCS as a true sophomore. Wouldn't be surprised if he transfers out this upcoming year. The other one is, we're loaded at wide receiver, probably be offensive line. Probably somebody like Delby Lemieux from Dartmouth, offensive tackle, three-time FCS All-American, 6'7", 280, 290. Probably going to be an NFL-type prospect, can play inside at guard. So it'd probably be Delby or Andrew Zock at edge from Mercer.
Good stuff.
And we played Mercer this year, too.
Yeah,
play Mercer. Sure.
We do. I forgot about that.
Zach, how would you compare James Ash to those guys? As far
so
as
Ash is more, he would be behind both of them. You're talking about two guys who are all Americans.
How far behind?
And also, too, the thing with Zock. Go ahead.
How far behind is Ash from those guys, would you say?
It's tough to say because Ash is a super senior. Zock's a sophomore.
Okay.
He's played 1 year of football in college, and they play different positions. But he's 6'2", 250, had 14.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks last year, and can play multiple positions along the D-line, can stand up. So I think he's more versatile than Ash, but it's hard to – Cole, you know this. It's hard to compare a true D tackle to an edge rusher, especially at 250, because if Ash was 250, he couldn't drop down inside like that. But with Delby, he's possibly an NFL prospect, which Ash probably isn't at his size. So I would say both those guys would be significantly better FCS players than Ash was, because like Jeffrey said in that last question, you have all American level players, and then you have like all SEC, all conference level players. And that's kind of the distinction you get with Ash to Zock and Delby.
Yeah.
Zach's about to find himself in Will Redmond's office come Monday morning. Just bank on that.
Yeah.
It needs to be the FCS liaison.
No doubt.
Appreciate you calling in, Ricky.
09 7-8. You're live. Who we talking to? Where are you calling from? 0978. You're live.
Bueller.
Bueller.
All right. 5202. You're live. Who we talking to? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is old Darren down in Niceville.
Oh, that's who we needed.
What's up, Darren?
So much. How about y'all today? Everything go good for your weekend, other than Auburn baseball kind of falling off a little bit. Had a tough game. Coastal was real.
Yeah.
Coastal's hot.
Yeah.
So I can't say that it was a good year.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't have the pitching, and it really kind of fell apart when Dutton. I don't know if it was arm fatigue. I don't know what it was. His last couple of SEC starts, he didn't look the same way he did to start the season. And it would make sense to me that it's arm fatigue because you're talking about a guy that averaged maybe 50 innings prior to this season. And I bet he's over 100 for the year, if I had to guess. So
Interesting.
to have that much put on him without that kind of a history, that would kind of mesh up, but Auburn just didn't have enough within their starting rotation to kind of overcome that Coastal program, which is, they've won a national championship before. It's a legitimate team and good on them and their head coach. And they're headed back to the College World Series, and Butch Thompson's doing what he needs to do in the transfer portal right now, picking up, I think this is his third pitcher today. This portal period, he signed one from Western Kentucky, one from Virginia Tech already. Picked up another arm from Michigan State today. So they're trying to fix their bullpen and starting situation right now.
Yeah, and I didn't know. I worked for Campbell's, and I didn't know that there was the Chanticleers. I didn't know I had counterparts in my position here within the company that were those folks. But trust me, my tech started lighting up when they found out they were coming here. So I'll get to them. You wonder what in the heck happened with now being 6'8", being a pitcher, and how that happened. But anyway, I digress. Go Big Blue. I love the question on Eric Winters. Is he going to get to play? And I love to hear that he may. And being an Enterprise graduate myself, I hope he does really well. I think he's kind of a freak athlete. So I do believe, I think, Jeffrey, you may be right. It may be special teams, but I don't care. I hope that guy gets on the field.
I think he will, Darren. He's a freak athlete's probably right. Got a big guy playing safety, instinctive. I think that's the number one thing with him. I watched him more than anybody. I watched him 3 times last year in person, and then watched him in camp. I come away impressed with him every single time. He has a nose for the ball. He's going to get 20-plus tackles in games like those. I think he'll be all over the place when he starts to get a feel for the defense at Auburn.
Well, we all know right now, I think, listening to what y'all said about I had Nacho, the 5-star, and some of that other group out, until December, right? I think right now, if Hugh can make this year finally put the proof of concept on that field and come up with 8-9 wins, that's going to bring some more big dogs. I think that's all we like right now is the proof of concept. Am I close?
I think that's it.
No, I think you're spot on. Whereas with the Harshen regime, I don't think they understood recruiting in general, not particularly in the Southeast, right? Okay, I think they were just lost in it all together, and the only thing that was going to help them was proof of concept on the field. Whereas Hugh and their operation, their outfit, they understand recruiting to a T. They're doing everything right off the field. But as Jeffrey put it so elegantly today on Josh Newberg's show, right now, you don't have necessarily that play to merit where you've been recruiting, and you can no longer sell hope. It was you're selling playing time, you're selling hope. Well, now you're going into year 3, and there needs to be some production there, or as we've said on this show, proof of concept that, hey, we are moving this forward. And that can come in a variety of ways. It can come with Keldrick Falk having a monster season on the field, and now he's going into the NFL draft and he's a top 20 type prospect. That's proof of concept on the field in one way. Another is through a number of wins that you've accrued or other statistics that you can accumulate. But it just hasn't been the finished product that Auburn needs to see to be enticing to other players, because I think you've talked about it, Cole. I know, Jeffrey, you've talked about it on the show, but how many times were kids that they were excited to come to a game, and then you talk to them afterwards, particularly some of those losses like the Vanderbilt game or the Cal game, and they were angry or disappointed.
Right.
Like, you weren't able to kind of enjoy Auburn in the way that it sells itself after a win, with the exception of the Texas A&M game. And I think if you can get a couple more big victories to see Auburn when it's right, it will absolutely help you in your close to recruiting for this year. And again, as we say, you want to be the last one on the phone with these premium players, making your best deal at the right time. Do not tip your hand early.
That's right.
You were talking about the baseball recruits coming in. Were they there this week or last week? I mean, did they see the 22,000 plus? And, I mean, that's got to be. And I feel the same way because now you have basketball players there at the baseball games. You see John Broom sitting behind home plate. I see football players. So the football players have got to be looking at this going, we want some of that fire right there. That's what we want to produce, is to be in the hunt. Now, I'm not saying Auburn wins the national championship. I'm just saying be in the hunt, be in a big bowl, make the playoff possibly. I mean, Fraser stuff's happened, right? But there's talent there now to do that. So where I'm leaving that for all three of y'all and anybody that wants to answer this, but I'm going to leave you with this one. What position group has made the biggest strides as a team, as a cohesive, communicative team effort? And what individual to you has made the biggest leaps? May not be for the same group, doesn't have to be. I'm just saying, what group and what individual has impressed you to make the biggest leaps and bounds going into this year? Enjoy the show, y'all. Thank y'all. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Talk to y'all later.
Appreciate it, big dog.
Thanks, Darren.
Good
Talking
question.
football.
Yeah, football. Jeffrey, lead us off, man. You were kind of quiet there for a little bit. Let's get you back involved here.
Well, he lost me with the baseball stuff. Well, he had a great question. Was, did these 4 transfers who just committed?
Yep.
Did they visit? I don't know. That's a great question. And I was thinking, wait a minute,
Dude, I'm pretty sure I saw some pictures taken from a few of the football OVs at the baseball game. I think they got to go see it.
But as far as the position group, for me, it's bar none quarterback.
That's good. Safe bet, I'd say.
Yeah. You didn't get to see X during spring practice.
Right.
And I would have loved to have seen Xavier Chaplin. To me, it's going to be offensive line. And it's one of 2 players that have taken the biggest step forward. I would either say Connor Lew or Jeremiah Wright. I think those are the 2. If you're looking at Jeremiah Wright from start to finish, when he got to Auburn to where he is now, I think it's been a quantum leap to what you're seeing on the field. I think Connor Lew, you've seen a guy that is just taking a step forward his first 2 years. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him and how he handles all the calls and adjustments at the line of scrimmage. I think that's such a pivotal piece that's overlooked at times, is how good, if you have a really good center that's as bright as Connor Lew is, that's now been exposed to 2 years worth of football, what that does for him from a football IQ standpoint, and how he can help with the overall protections and making sure that regardless of who's at quarterback, that they're protected and that they're not laying on their backside more oftentimes than not.
I was thinking offensive line, Alan, but I'm going to go with the defensive line.
Okay.
More particularly like your interior, your nose, your 3-tech, your 5, your 4-eye, those guys. I'm almost to the point now. I've seen enough evidence of what Vontrell King-Williams is going to put on the field, where the names matter, obviously, and I think there's a lot of good names involved, but that unit is going to perform. I feel comfortable saying that. Going back, and Durkin too. You put it on him too. His defensive fronts are good. They just are. So combine that with what I think are some good names. I like the additions of James Ash. I like the addition of Jay Hardy. I think there's talent there. I hope they can get it out of him. I like Malik Blockton. I like Bobby Travis.
Mhm.
I love Jordan Crawford.
I know you do.
I'm starting to love what I'm hearing about Malik Autry. Those guys will be supplements, whereas your supplements a year ago were transfers. Now you're building, right, with the guys.
Yes.
And I think those guys will be supplements just as good as your transfers were. They have the talent, higher talent ceilings than those guys. Darion Smith, hear a lot about him. So I feel good about that position in general. I think they'll handle their business.
They have built layered depth in that room in a way that is very difficult to do in the freedom of movement era that we're in.
Yes.
And you have insurance policies, right? You talked about James Ash. You talked about Hardy. Those guys, to me, are insurance policies for who you talked about, players behind them that have significantly higher ceilings, but you don't have to count on that right away. When you're playing against Baylor, guess what? And I need to rotate Malik Blockton out. I've got James Ash right there. And he started how many games in his career?
Yeah, he's a bunch.
Right? So you're not having to count on a true freshman in a big game environment and how they react to that situation. So Malik Autry, if he's not ready, he's not going to be forced in there. And if he is ready, it's because he beat out a kid that's got, over 400 plus snaps in his career of varsity football at the college level, regardless if it's FCS or P4. That still matters. Experience matters, especially in big game environments early in the season. And I think you hit it perfectly, Cole, and tied it together very elegantly. But the way the construction of that room and the fact that you have these high-end pieces that you don't necessarily have to count on, when you can look at a depth chart and you don't see a true freshman as your number 2, it brings, some comfort to my soul in knowing that you're going to be okay. You know what I mean?
Yours and Hugh Freeze's.
I bet.
Because I've had head coaches tell me this. It's no knock against young guys, but they're gonna have mental lapses. And when your your gap, your what do we call it? Margin of error or margin for error is as small as Auburn's was last year. Those mental mistakes will end up in a loss. You can't have them. You can't, and that's what happens when you rely on freshmen. Like you just said, you're not counting on Malik Autry. He's there to help.
I think about Towns Magoo last year and how much would it have helped to have a kicker that had a little bit more experience than being forcing a freshman into that situation. And if you have a consistent kicker, does Auburn win 2 more games last year?
Yeah, it probably.
And are we having the same conversation? Is Hugh Freeze being viewed the same way if he just has one position differently?
No.
7-5 last year, not the step forward Auburn fans would have wanted.
7-5.
If they had gone 7-5.
Oh, for sure.
If you win 2 more
for
games.
Sure.
But the whole conversation is very different about Hugh Freeze right now.
Go win a bowl game, finish 8-5.
The whole difference would be, well, now we're talking about 9. You got to get 9.
Now you got to get 9.
And that's really the projection that they should be on right now.
It is. 100%. But my name to Darren's is Kieron Crawford. That's the guy. I think if you go back and watch, and if you watch it like I do, which there's maybe 5 people in the world that watch it like I do because I'm obsessed with it, he was a lot better than I realized. He got pressures. I think he's going to turn that into a lot more pressures this season and sacks.
Y'all seen him up close. I haven't. I mean, does he look as pretty in person as he does on film, man? I mean, you're talking about looking like he's built in a lab, dude.
He's pretty.
His percentage of body fat's got to be way low, Jeffrey, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
One of the lowest on the team, I think. Lean, but
and that's important to him.
It's not like Jalen McLeod where you're lacking length there.
Right.
This guy's got length. I mean, they looked at him at Arkansas State and said this was a guy that was a basketball player who's played like 2 years of football, and he's already doing what he's doing. That ceiling is through the roof, man. We got to get that guy and work on him. I think this is the year that comes to fruition.
I'm glad it's football season.
Yeah.
It's close.
We're almost there, right?
Like the day baseball ends, it's football season.
Well, you know what? There was a day and time covering Auburn sports where there were 2 seasons. There was Auburn football season, and then there was spring football, right?
Right.
And everything else fell secondary to that. I do think Auburn and the quantum leap in basketball that Bruce Pearl's been able to take and Butch Thompson making baseball relevant has created more of a schedule that doesn't revolve around football. But I'm with you. There's nothing like the anticipation of fall football where there's actual expectation, right?
Mm.
Not what it's been the last 4 years, but actual expectation of Auburn playing a quality product. And potentially, maybe you get a win against Georgia this year. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but maybe. Stranger thing, maybe you beat Alabama. But
Maybe.
you almost beat Alabama in year one with a team that's not nearly as talented as this one.
Yep.
Right?
Should have.
So there are a lot of possibilities for this team. I still think 8-4 is probably the safest bet of where I see them, just because of, I think to be better than that, Auburn's going to have to get the injury bounce where they don't get critical players injured. And that's so tough. It's so tough to go through a full season without getting an injury to somebody that you really need. And you saw that play out last year where you had an injury to your kicker. You had injuries across the offensive line at times. So I still hedge my bets and say 8-4 is the probable record for this season. But I do believe the ceiling is higher than that for this team.
Yeah, it is, I think.
Are you happy with 8-4 and
Yes.
losses to both Georgia and Alabama? Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's a step in the right direction. That means
Absolutely.
that means you beat everybody you should have beat on your schedule,
Yeah.
and you probably beat one other that you shouldn't have.
Jeffrey, did you give a guy, an improved guy?
No, was that the question?
It was position and then give one name that you think is going to be improved.
Oh, so I said the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But do I have to have a quarterback that's going to be improved because none of them were on the roster?
Yeah, that's the tough one for you, man. Like,
Well,
for
you don't have to have a quarterback. I had a different for my position.
Much improved. Much improved. I'm going through the positions right now. Like I'm starting out wide. I don't think there's much can be done with the wide receivers. I think, although, I mean, there was a stint last year where Cam Coleman was not Cam Coleman.
No, I mean, I think you could make a case for Cam Coleman. If he goes, he gets 900 yards this year, 1,000 yards this season, that he couldn't be the most improved player on the team. I mean, what did he get, 650 last year?
Did he get 650?
I think he was in the fours.
I did too.
I think he was closer to 6.
598. You're right.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
No,
but you know what? Those all came in the last 2 games.
The last
of them
3.
did.
Yeah.
A lot
The
of
last
them did.
3.
The
Yeah.
Cam don't transfer games.
Yeah. No shit.
That goes back to freshmen, and we get the question all the time. Well, why didn't Ryan Williams have those issues? No, because Ryan Williams had a better football team running, and you don't notice it as much when it's all on Cam Coleman to make a play, and he doesn't make it. It looks awful on him.
It does.
Ryan Williams made mistakes. So you go to Oklahoma game, they lost. He fielded a punt at the 1 yard line. Can't do that. Auburn does that. What happens? Bad.
Yes.
That's the kind of stuff that you don't realize if you don't watch every single play of every game, right? You go with a narrative. You got to watch it. You got to learn from that.
I feel like Cam Coleman. I'm sorry.
I'm saying Ryan Williams had his share of mental mistakes, mental lapses, like every single freshman in the world does. But his plays that he made outweighed it. Whereas Cam Coleman's plays he made at the end of the year, you forgot about his mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm going through positions and I'm going, well, Cam Coleman's low hanging fruit here, right?
Sure.
We all know Cam Coleman's going to be a stud this year, right? All right. So quarterback's off the board. There's no year to improve upon for any of those guys. Damari is an option. I think Jeremiah Cobb. I think Jeremiah Cobb is as well.
Yeah.
Tight ends, nobody there really with any experience coming back. Offensive line, I don't know.
But
who's that? Yeah.
Frazier, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I like Brandon Frazier. He made some plays last year.
He's not bad.
He made some plays last year. I'm not shunning him off. Offensive line, I don't know enough about those guys. I think, did you say Connor Lew, Alan?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a great one. Defensive line, you got Malik Blockton, you've got Bobby, you've got some of the freshmen coming in, you've got some of the transfers. I don't know enough about those cats. I think Kieran Crawford is a great one. Cole. I think he's a fantastic one.
What about a Morris Williams?
That's a great one.
Ooh.
Probably the best pick, honestly.
Ooh. I see. I'm glad I held off.
Guys like that, they have nowhere to go but up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely. I think both of those guys, because I mean, Keldrick's on the other side. There's not much more he could do.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to look at him having a stud
I
year
will
and go,
say
"Oh man, he's the most improved player on the team."
Yeah, not statistically.
His improvement from year 1 to year 2, though, was phenomenal.
Linebackers, you've got a Robert Woodyard in there.
Yo, that could be a quantum leap for Robert. I mean, this is a big year for him.
You've got Kayan Lee, who could have a bigger year.
He could absolutely clean up a lot of things in coverage and be a more consistent guy.
Jay Crawford.
Yes.
It'll be hard. Jay Crawford scares me a little bit. It's going to be hard for him to top what he did.
Well, this is where I think he might be better. I think there's an opportunity with what you've added in the transfer portal for these guys to be fresher. Do you remember how much they had to play last year on the outside? I mean, they didn't get a snap off.
Yeah, I mean, so much that the relief came from like Amon
Lane Gaines,
right?
Well, no, I've been doing the running backs. I'm grading the running backs every play from Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, because that's the time of year we're in. And I'm watching every play from every game going back to the beginning. And boy, Antonio Kite played a lot at first.
Antonio Kite, yeah.
Yeah.
And he got kicked off the team later. Champ Anthony was playing corner.
Oh, and then he got hurt.
That's a good nominee.
The Arkansas game, when he was having an awesome game, he had the big hit. He had a pass breakup. He had a big tackle out in space, all in the span of 2 drives.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing boundary corner. He was not playing nickel.
No.
I found that to be very interesting because Jay Crawford, I believe, was suspended for that game.
And then that's when, once that depth eroded, right? And then it was just K and Lee.
And it was K and J.
And it was K and J. And their legs looked tired by the end of the year. So I think if there's a chance for them to play better, it's because through rotation, having Rayon Strader there.
Huge.
Having the kid from Tulane, Rayshawn Pleasant there.
I forgot about him.
Like those two being your backups.
How about
and
Blake
being able, Blake would be. We just talked about on the defensive line, if these freshmen outplay who you went and got from the portal, you're in a really great spot. If Blake Woodby outplays Rayshawn Pleasant, do you know how excited people should be about the secondary? Because Rayshawn Pleasant's a really good player. I mean, he was a starter in the AAC, which is about, that is the conference. This is just kind of a step down from your Power 4. Had 30-plus tackles, interception, 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy that can really play. And to have a true freshman come in and be better than him from jump, it says a lot about that kid's future.
Strader, I think I've heard a lot of good things about him.
Yeah, I think Wes is high on him for sure.
At safety, you've got Caleb Harris, who is coming back from was he a freshman All-American?
Yes. And
yeah, he was.
If my information is right about his performance in spring, they think he's going to take an even bigger jump this year.
I want to say real quick too before we end this, the jump from year 1 to year 2 we're talking about with Keldrick, right?
Yeah.
I think, guys, are we not giving enough credit to the staff's ability to progress their players?
Develop.
Because I know there's a lot of people that are going back because you forget how bad it was at times.
Sure.
Malzahn, I like Gus Malzahn, by the way. I think he did great things at Auburn. I don't think the program was headed in the right direction with him.
Fair.
Because the guys that he brought in were the same as when they started at Auburn. They didn't develop. I think this staff is good at it. Freeze talked to Chris Lowe, ESPN this week, and he stood up for Peyton Thorne And he said, guys, he's like, I'm just going to tell you, he got the brunt of the deal. And I feel bad for him, basically, is what he's saying, where he said, what I'm seeing right now in Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman is monumental from where they were when he was having to deal with that. And he said, there were times when Peyton was ready to pull the trigger on something that we had it at practice and it wasn't there in the game because the young receivers didn't know exactly what to do at times.
Sure, their depth wasn't right. They busted the route, whatever it was, right?
He's saying Peyton, boy, he caught the brunt of the deal a lot. He said, Jackson, that's not going to be as much of a problem. So I loved that quote. First of all, that's what I've been seeing. Those kind of issues. Second, Jackson's set up for success, I think.
More so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My hesitation with that response by Hugh, I think he's right. And like I've watched wide receiver play, and I do think that there were some issues there just because you're going to have issues with young players. When you're counting on that many young guys, there are going to be things that they're still learning about the game. My question is on Jackson, is he ready to take that next step on the field? Because I don't know all of what went into the Oklahoma situation. I know you had an offensive coordinator in Seth Luttrell, who's a phenomenal offensive mind. He's never coached quarterbacks a day in his life, and he was his quarterback coach. I know that they had to fire him in mid-year because things were that bad. I know the offensive line was a mash unit, and the wide receiver core they lost their top 6 guys. So there are a lot of things there.
Yeah.
But when you watch him on tape over and over again, the ball gets stuck in his hand, and he can't get it out for whatever the reason. Will that be an issue at Auburn? Because I would tell you what, when the play broke down and he's off platform, dude, his accuracy is insane. But not every play is like that. And teams will start to play you to keep you in the pocket. Now, I think the weapons are going to be so good that it's going to be very clear with what he needs to do with the ball. But I need to kind of see that happen. And I do think Hugh is kind of staking his reputation somewhat on Jackson Arnold. He's built a reputation on developing quarterbacks. It didn't take place with Peyton. Now, he developed from year 1 to year 2.
I was going to say.
You can't say he didn't develop Peyton because the jump from 1 to 2 was huge. I think he threw for 1,500 yards his first year at Auburn. He threw for over 2,700 yards his second year. So a major difference.
Sorry, Al.
That's still Peyton Thorne's numbers from last year aren't what he was able to accomplish with Malik, right? They're not what he was able to accomplish with Chad.
Right.
Or with Bo Wallace or multiple other quarterbacks that Hughes had. So it wasn't the same level of success. Can Jackson Arnold be that first 3,000-yard passer in Auburn history since what? Damian Craig? I mean, who's the last 3,000-yard passer in Auburn history? Did the kid from Baylor, did he hit 3,000 yards? Did Stidham hit 3,000?
He had carry on, didn't he?
I think he was
He
like
did.
2,800.
Oh, wow.
Hang on, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Alan, the improvement from the first half of last season to the back half was kind of obvious too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of that is the situation got better for him with the young receivers growing up. They fixed some things, pass protection, to the point where you've gotten to where Auburn fans are like, well, they don't trust him anymore. And nothing's going to get better. And then you get in the A&M situation, a drive that has to be made, and everybody almost exits the stadium like they're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it happen because the situation got better, because he started dialing it in a little bit more. The ball was coming out of his hand a lot faster, like you said.
Yes.
So now you're looking at a situation with Arnold where we think his talent ceiling is a lot higher.
Yes.
Fit's probably better. And the situation is where it was at the end of the year last year, or better. Probably better.
Oh, I think it's much better. I think Auburn's offensive line is better. I think their wide receiver core is better. You could argue running backs. Oklahoma had some talented kids on that roster. But
Yep.
Zach called it. I just looked it up. Jared Stidham in 2017, 246 for 370, 66% completion percentage, 3,158 yards, 18 tuds, and 6 picks for Jared Stidham. It was a hell of a year for him. And he had Kerryon Johnson in the backfield go for over 1,200 yards.
Yep.
Huh. 3,000?
Yeah. Now, that
That's a
game,
lot.
he threw for over 300 yards in the bowl game, if I remember correctly, against UCF. He had a high pick game, but he also threw for over 300. And that's where he cracked the 3,000-yard mark.
And that was in 14 games.
Yes. So it's not.
They got a championship game.
Yes.
And the bowl game, 12, 11, 13, 14. Yeah.
Right.
Plus, Peyton didn't play in the New Mexico game, and he didn't start the first half of the Arkansas game.
No, I mean, give Peyton Hanks stats for that New Mexico game, and he's almost at the 3,000-yard mark.
In the regular season, I think he threw for 2,400.
It was more than that. It was like 2,700, and then he had a decent game against UGA in the championship game, and then he had a big game yardage standpoint against UCF.
Well, either way, he passed for more than 300 yards. I mean, 3,000 yards.
Yeah, he was the last
2017.
Yeah,
and would you argue that was probably the best offensive line Auburn has had?
Since?
Oh yeah.
Well, my thing was this: do you think this year's offensive line will be the best offensive line Auburn has had since 17? It has the potential to be the best offensive line Auburn has had since 2017.
Easily.
Yeah, definitely since 19. Probably since 17. Yeah,
easily has the potential.
So, like you said, Cole, set up for Jackson Arnold.
What? That's not what I said. That's what Free said.
Now, Braden Smith was on that 17 team, right?
Yes.
Braden Smith. I believe the center was Casey Dunn, wasn't it?
Yes. Casey Dunn was the center. Braden Smith was your right guard.
Casey Dunn was a transfer from Sanford.
Jacksonville State.
Yes.
That's what I said.
Jack State. Austin Golson was your right tackle.
Yeah.
From
was he your left tackle? From Prattville, Alabama.
Prattville, Alabama.
We transferred from Ole Miss.
Yes.
And you had the transfer from Texas. I can't remember his name.
Damian James.
Yes.
Derwin
James was the safety at Florida State.
Damian James was not an offensive lineman for Auburn.
Darius James.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Darius. I was
Darius.
about to say how much money we put on it.
Darius with one R.
Darius. He was a transfer from Texas.
Yes.
We're missing one left guard, and I want to say it was the kid out of Atlanta, not Horton, but the other one.
Oh,
He's always outspoken on social media now.
Oh, Markel Harrell.
Yep.
Harrell.
Yeah.
Harrell.
Casey Dunn, Austin Golson, Braden Smith, Markel Harrell.
And I'd argue Connor Lew's the best center Auburn's had since Casey Dunn.
I'd say Connor Lew's probably a step ahead of Casey.
Oh, he's definitely a step ahead. I'm just saying, like, that's how long it's been since you've had.
Let's just go Let's go 1-on-1 now that we know it. Center, would you give Lou?
Yes, I give Lou the edge.
Okay. Right guard is Jeremiah. Right.
I love Jeremiah, but he's not better than Braden Smith, bro. Braden Smith used to just dominate dudes in the hole.
That's a tough pull right there.
Yeah, it's a tough pull.
Left guard, you said was Harrell versus Dylan Wade.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because I haven't seen Dylan Wade play enough left guard to say he's better. Jeffrey, what do you think? You watched that team.
I was reading up on the 2017. What was the question?
We're going 1-on-1 with 17's offensive line versus who's starting in that position now. So left guard would be Dylan Wade versus Markel Harrell.
Dylan Wade.
Okay.
Really?
I'll take you on that one.
And then Connor Lou versus Casey Dunn.
Connor, for sure.
Yeah. And then right guard was tough. That's Braden Smith versus Jeremiah Wright. Tough pull for Jeremiah.
Yeah, I'm going Braden. He had that was what I was reading about. Braden had a 99% pass blocking efficiency.
Yes, dude. I watched him pancake so many players, and at one point, Gus had his pin and pull going. I mean, and they had the option game going that year a little bit. Dude, he got out on a linebacker or a safety. I can't remember what it was. And that poor kid. I mean, I just remember seeing him just fly onto the sideline. He hit him so hard. It was something to watch him.
Who's the right tackle?
Austin. No, Golson was the left tackle. Yeah, it was Darius, that was the right
No, I
tackle.
think the left tackle was Tega, wasn't it?
Tega was in 18 and 19.
Yep. He was the reserve left tackle.
Yep.
Okay. You're right.
It was Austin Golson and Darius James, I think.
That's right.
Do you know that offensive line in 2017 gave up an 11 sack performance against
Clemson. Yeah, I
Dude.
remember that.
Yeah, that was brutal that night, too.
Stidham, a lot of that too was Stidham. He could not get the ball out of his hands for nothing.
No, he couldn't.
He was
And
holding it.
Yeah, at one point he one-hopped it to somebody.
Yeah.
He was so tired of getting hit.
Clemson's defense was nasty at the time too, though. They
Their
really were
defensive
good.
line was for sure.
Yeah.
The Clemson was the worst offensive output of Gus Malzahn's coaching career. Gave up 11 sacks and limited Auburn to a season worst 38 yards rushing on 42 attempts.
That was when we played Clemson like 3 years in a row, right? Because I think the season prior to that, they featured Cox Cat, where they rolled 3 quarterbacks out there. They had Jeremy Johnson, Sean White, and poor old Chandler.
There was John Franklin III also. Was
Yes.
in the mix. That's the worst. That's the worst offensive. I've never seen anything that bad to this day.
I know you were loving those rotation at quarterback.
And then when we got to the press conference,
oh yeah,
we thought that was the best way to do it.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, you got to get JG to do a Gus Malzahn.
Dude, JG doing Gus and or Jay Jacobs.
Yeah.
Jay Jacobs is my favorite, man.
Zach in the back says Jarrett Stidham and Damian Craig are the only 2 Auburn quarterbacks to ever pass for 3,000 yards in a season. Also, in that Clemson 11 sack performance, they had Farrell.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Dexter Lawrence, Wilkins. What was Wilkins' first name?
Christian.
Yes.
And Isaiah Simmons, dude.
Oh,
they were nasty.
I think they're all still playing.
Yeah.
Auburn defense, if I remember correctly, kept them in that game, and Auburn had a chance. I believe it ended with like Stidham throwing a Hail Mary to Nate Craig Myers with a chance to tie it, and he didn't catch it.
14-6.
Yeah, they had a nasty group up front themselves. You had Derek Brown and Marlin, obviously. Still young in their careers, but they were playing well at that point. You had
Dontavius Russell.
Big-time nose guard, yes. And then that was Sensei Mudd's year where he got off.
Yeah,
good point. Jeff Holland was bad.
Yeah.
I wish he would stay one more year.
I do too. And
man, he was so fun to watch that year.
He really was. I mean, he came off the edge. And my favorite part is the story they tell about how like he had worked karate moves in the offseason to help him with his hands, and he would like chase Kevin down the hallway doing karate towards him.
That's where the name came from.
Kevin Steele running from Jeff Holland down the hallway, dude.
I remember calling that recruitment. It seemed like it would never end for some reason, but it was like Auburn led the whole time, but he's not committing. Why?
Because of Will being down at Florida. And I think, didn't he commit to Will at Florida and then flipped?
Yes. Jeff Holland was.
Did he really?
Yeah, I think he committed to Will at Florida. Let me pull that up real quick.
I was looking at it.
Will he gets some recruits now.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. Look, man, that was having Will. It didn't work statistically that year, but him and T-Rob brought in a lot of talent that year that Kevin capitalized on.
Yeah.
I mean, they signed a lot of dudes. Having those two plus Rodney Garner on the same coaching staff. And then Hot Pants Lance was also on that staff, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think so.
With his family. Never mind. We're going to stay away from Lance Thompson slander.
Holland last named Auburn as leader in December after Will Muschamp was hired as defensive coordinator. The Tigers became the heavy favorite when they added Travaris Robinson.
Yep.
Them two being there was icing on the cake, Jeff Holland said.
Yeah, I knew that Will was a major pull in that recruitment.
He committed to Auburn minutes after Carlton Davis. And that was a hell of a signing day.
Yeah.
It really was because they got Carlton Davis, Jeff Holland. They got Derek Brown on that signing day.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was huge. That like got my interest back in Auburn recruiting again.
Jamal Dean also came in on that one. Mike Horton, yeah.
On that, he was a signing day guy.
He was a signing day guy.
Flip from Florida. He was a flip.
He did.
Maybe that's who the flip from Florida was. It was Mike Horton.
Yeah,
you're right. It was Mike Horton. You're right.
I remember I hadn't even heard that much of Carlton Davis, and I was like, nice addition. He might be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you flip a South Florida prospect that's committed to Ohio State,
yeah,
big time move for Auburn.
That defensive back class with those cats there, holy smokes!
Who was the kid? He played a lot of nickel, but he was also South Florida. I'm trying to think. He was unheralded.
Robinson Therese.
No, I was thinking Javaris Davis, but yeah, Robinson. Yeah. Robinson was the class before that, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Robinson. All I can think about Robinson is get the hell out of Chris Davis's way. He was way earlier. He was in the kick six.
You know what? I've had a complaint about that for years. Watching that, even every time I watch it, I say it. Get out of the way.
Me and Scott Fountain.
Do you know that he did a podcast, Jeffrey?
Who?
Robinson Therese talking about it. He's come out and said, like, this is why I was in the way. He said he thought the play was dead.
He almost blocked that kick.
I know. He said that. He said, thank God. He did? He said it in the podcast. He goes, thank God I didn't practice that enough. And then he said, I'm looking around. He said, I thought I heard a whistle. I'm looking around. And then I almost tripped my guy up. He gets mad at himself. So you need to watch that. It's funny.
That was one of the last things Scott Fountain me and him were talking about. And he was like, every time I watch that video, I'm going, get out of the way, you idiot.
Yep. Let me correct myself. Derek Brown was the next class. Byron Cowart was signing day. Do you remember how big that was?
Yeah, that was a Will Muschamp special.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes. Darius Slayton was a signing day flip from Georgia.
Huge.
How big did that one end up becoming?
Major.
Tim Irvin.
I remember him.
Man, 22.
Yep.
Michael
Irvin, I can name you. I can tell you their names or where they're from.
He was kin to Michael Irvin.
Ryan Davis, signing day flip.
From
Lakewood, Florida, St. Peter.
No. Where did he flip from?
Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Will flipped like half his roster from Florida.
That's right. That was that right there kept Gus Malzahn at Auburn. That class kept him at Auburn as long as it did. Like, I think when those recruits ran out is when Malzahn went down.
He did. It was that year, and then the next year with Marlon and Derek. Mm-hmm. And then after that, things were kind of running on empty, right?
Yep.
But one Jeremiah Denson, let's not forget him, was also, that was the one I was thinking of from South Florida that was kind of unheralded, but he played a ton of snaps, man.
We've lost Cole, and that's all right. Yeah, we've had a great show, man. Had a fantastic show. Appreciate the calls, man. We did a lot of talking and not so much answering, but this was one of those weeks where, I mean, this was a monumental week in college football, and I wanted to go over everything with everybody. I know nobody better to do it than Mr. Allen Head. Answered a lot of my questions, clarified a lot. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. And if you missed that, you need to go back and watch the first 25, 30 minutes of the show, kind of get you caught up on what's going on in college football. And but to better understand it, I know it helped me a lot. But we appreciate Kevin and Ricky and Darren calling in. We're going to be back next week, Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time. And don't forget, if you're in Auburn, Opelika, Lee County, look no further for the help you need when it comes to real estate. Miss Jessica Andrews with the Talents Group. Give her a call, 334-704-4442. Tell her we sent you. All right, that's going to do it, folks. We'll be back midweek at some point, either Wednesday morning or Thursday morning with a recruiting show. And then we'll be returning to the live air on Sunday night at 7 p.m. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody watching. For Cole Pinkston, for Allen Head, for Zach in the back, who stayed in the back, I'm Jeffrey Lee, man. Y'all stay in that left lane. See ya.